Welcome back to Brewbound's ongoing coverage of how the beer industry is responding to the impact of the novel coronavirus disease, COVID-19. My name is Justin Kindle, and I'm the editor of Brewbound, and I'm still in Watertown, Massachusetts, still in my tiny apartment, and still doing Google Hangouts. And today I'm joined by Omar Ansari, the founder of Surly Brewing Company in Minneapolis. Omar, how are you doing?
Well, I'm doing all right. We're hanging in there as a company, and the sun's still shining. And I got a job that's kind of today what seems to make for a good day these days.
That's a good day for all of us at this point. So I'm wondering, what's the climate like in Minnesota? What are you seeing as far as? My question is, I'm out on the East Coast.
Hmm.
I'm near the epicenter.
Yeah.
You're in Minnesota. I don't think that that's quite as big of a hot spot. So, what's the climate there? What are you hearing from consumers and retailers? What's the feeling?
Well, climate. Unfortunately, it's still cold, so that doesn't make this any easier. We all want a little bit warmer as far as that climate goes, but we've been on shutdown since March. Well, and I got my dates here since they keep seeming to come up. March 17th, the beer hall, restaurants, bars shut down, and I think school shut down the week before. So, we've got 80 some odd fatalities in Minnesota. So it's certainly nothing to the dire situation in New York or even in some larger areas. I think Michigan and Chicago are a bit worse off. So it's the worry I think we all had was when Fauci got on TV and said 200,000 people might die. I think was a bit of wake up and a shock to everyone. So there was a time there when the governor was talking around maybe 3 to 15,000 people might die in Minnesota. It's like I said, it's at 87, and it looks like it may be cresting to me. Every day I check out the Minnesota Health Department's website to see what kind of how the numbers look. So, I think we've probably are about to or have crested. I hope. So I think people are obviously worried, knowing that we're not out of this, but perhaps we're all hopeful it's not going to be as horrible as we may have all thought at one time during that third or fourth week of March. It was pretty dark for everyone. So, but yeah, streets are empty, grocery stores are busy, but yeah, everyone is at home and on lockdown. But just to the west of us in South Dakota, they don't have any restrictions at all, and so they've now had a couple outbreaks. So we are next to some states, I guess redder states maybe, that are looking to get things opened up or haven't shut down at all.
That's in your home state. That sounds good. In South Dakota, that sounds scary.
Yeah, it's obviously a different spot. So I think kind of the middle of the country is a little bit of a different situation with your Dakotas and Montana and Wyoming, or I think not quite as many cases out there. Hopefully, it
Yeah.
stays that way.
Well, you recently penned a letter, and you mentioned one of the things that you mentioned in that letter was shutting down the beer hall, shutting down your pizza joint, shutting down your event space. You were going to have my favorite band there over the
Mhm.
summer, the National. The loss of that business, coupled with on-premise sales being shut down, how big of a toll has that taken on the business?
Our sales are probably down 60% or revenue versus last year. I would think it'll probably even get bigger, month over month as the season goes on, because, our beer hall, and when I say beer hall, I mean we have a, 250 seat beer hall, probably 80 seat pizza restaurant upstairs, a 150 person event center, and then our beer garden's around 2 acres. So, when you add it all up, on weekends, we easily get 5,000 people in the day. So, we're like a lot of restaurants that have a huge patio component, or they're on a lake. They make their money in the summer, and we're no different. We kind of struggle through the winter to get to the summertime, and that's when that's kind of our time to make the hay. And so yeah, it's a huge, obviously, like everyone, it's a massive hit to revenue to profitability. I mean, all those plans are out the window at the moment. And then, of course, we've laid off or furloughed 280 of our 360 employees. So that that's a lot of people who are not bringing home a paycheck or not coming to work.
That's heavy. So losing 60% of your business, and with an uncertain future of when this sort of comes back, how do you make that up in the interim, or even part of that, I should say?
How do we make up the profitability of it?
Yeah, well, just the loss of business. What are you doing to sort of adjust in the
Oh,
interim? We've
yeah. I
seen.
mean, yeah, a lot of that's not, we won't get it back, right? People don't drink two beers tomorrow because they didn't have one yesterday. Um, so a lot of that is, yeah, just gone, and who knows what's going to, in what state we'll be when we get out of this. So, for us, the things we do have going is we do still are selling packaged beer. So we can our beer. So we're selling that at liquor stores. So that business is keeping the 80 of us left here afloat. And then in the beer hall, we have pivoted to doing some to-go food. So we've got about 8 people probably working doing that. And really, it's not paying the bills. It's simply, I think we need to find a way to keep that team going and optimistic and hopeful for the future, because we have such a big facility. When we do get going, we've got to have at least a skeleton team to get it going again. I mean, it's just, it's not like we have 3 cooks and we just make burgers. We have hundreds of I mean, it's not 100 people on the cooking team, but it's probably like 60. So, we can't just open it up and hire some people. So it takes a lot to get it going. So we've kept those guys on, and we're probably doing like $2,000-$2,500 a day in to-go sales on a good day. So that's kind of what we've been doing to keep this whole thing going.
Well, and one of the things you didn't mention is to-go sales of beer or delivery of beer,
Right.
because unlike other states that have opened up sales of beer to go and for curbside and delivery, that's not an option for Surly, correct?
Correct. So, when we opened in 2006, that year they passed a bill, the legislature did, so breweries could sell growlers, but they capped it at a 3,500 barrel limit. So when you pass that volume, you could no longer sell growlers. So we sold growlers for maybe 2 years. We kept growing. And when we probably got around to 25 or 30,000 barrels, the legislature lifted that limit up to 20,000 barrels. So we were, I think, no coincidence, it was just under what we were selling. So, we haven't sold growlers or any to-go beer in 12 years. And so we've not been doing that. I know that's how obviously some breweries are making it right now. They're delivering beer, curbside beer, but that's not an avenue that is open to us. And they just this week have been working at the Capitol to open things up for bars and restaurants to sell beer and wine to go. But once again, breweries that are currently not able to do it will not be able to take advantage of that. So they do not want to see that change happen.
Even in an emergency situation like this, and I mean, you laid out a very large business that you've lost and a large headcount of people that you've had to furlough. There's no relief in sight from lawmakers there.
No, there's not. I mean, it's still politics, I guess. So there's all kind of speculation. I mean, I'm sure it's just the same groups that don't want to have us get it during the regular non-pandemic era that figure that if we get it for this, we'll probably, it won't go away. I don't know. So it's just one of those things, I guess, when we didn't have it, it's not, we haven't lost it in a sense, I guess. So in some ways it's easier to deal with us because it hasn't been a source of revenue for so long. It'd be great. All right. I mean, it would probably bring more people in the door. But there's so many things one can work on controlling these days. So, I mean, we are really pushing, we have a big social media campaign. We're pushing for Taste Better Local, to really just pump up all of our bars and restaurants that are doing to go and trying to get that out there. Cause that is, we're working hard to try and keep them going and just keep spreading that message to people that that's what's going to keep those places alive.
Uh, we saw a big spike in grocery sales
Mm-hmm.
After COVID-19 hit as people stocked up. In Minnesota, you're in the last 3-2 beer state.
Correct.
How big of a business did Surly do in grocery pre-COVID, and did you see a bump? Were you in on that spike?
Well, another oddity about Minnesota. So grocery stores don't sell beer. Grocery stores sell 3-2. They don't sell wine, liquor, or beer in grocery stores. So the only thing they sell are 3-2. So really the only world that 3-2 exists in is grocery stores and C stores. So C stores don't sell any alcohol to go except 3-2 beer. So all of the beer, wine, liquor sold in liquor stores in Minnesota. So we got a huge spike right after. Sales were probably up 25-30% for those couple weeks, but they have definitely tapered off. And it seems like it is just tough for our distributors to model what's going to happen and to project. So we're doing our best to be as flexible as possible to try to react to what consumers are doing. But we certainly did get a big spike right after it was right before shelter in place in Minnesota. So it was probably that week of the third and fourth week of March, things were bananas.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're in some tough spots. The government has offered some assistance through the SBA program, through the CARES Act. Did you apply for any of the government assistance from the CARES Act, and did you qualify?
We did. We had a challenge with our bank. They're one of the larger banks. And, they, I think, had a big challenge they had a digital platform, and, we didn't fit in their first round of applications. So I think by the end, I think it was last Thursday, I called them and I'm like, should I apply at another bank? Because like, if you can't put it in, I get it. Wells Fargo is located in Minnesota. And when that news came down that Wells was out of money, I think that freaked everybody out. It was because that they had those limitations put on them by the government. But, when that sort of came down, I'm like, oh my God, we might not get this loan. And that's when that certainly changed some thinking also. But we did end up, so they did end up pushing us through in a little different manner than they normally had. So last Friday afternoon, we got the thumbs up that we got an SBA number. So we will be, I think, getting some paperwork today or Monday to finish it up. So I'm glad we pushed a little bit harder. We've got a pretty big loan here at the brewery with this huge brewery and equipment. So we are pretty good with our bankers. So they did help us out at the end to kind of push it on through.
That's good. Have you heard when that money might come through? Like, do you know the timetable?
Well, it's supposed to be 10 days after, I guess, you get your number. So, I mean, I'm assuming we'll get it next week would be my guess. We'll find out soon. But, for us, we're okay for now. I mean, just kind of knowing we're getting the money is the big difference. I mean, it allows us to, we brought a couple salespeople back that had been furloughed. We figure they'll have there's work for them to do. Even if they can't go out, they can still contact people they know in the business and even just check in sometimes it's doing something to try and stay in contact with our accounts.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I wanted to talk about is that giant brewery you run there. You run a destination brewery, and you run a restaurant and an event space.
Yeah.
And I wonder, what does the on-premise look like when it finally returns? Have you even begun to think about what it might look like? Because you said you bring through about 5,000 people. Was it a day?
On a Saturday, if it's a nice day, we'll just kind of have people coming through all day. If it's one where they can sit outside. So that's the big, the $1 million question is, not just our on-premise, of course, but also how many bars and restaurants are we going to lose? We all know we're going to lose a bunch, and Minnesota's a tough spot to operate a bar or restaurant because there's no tip credit in Minnesota. So it's going to be really tough for a lot of places to come out of this. Um, so we started having that conversation in the beer hall. We're probably going to have to make some changes. We don't know what, but we're not bringing the whole staff back. I mean, it's going to be incremental. We've moved some tables around to see what it looks like if tables are 6 feet apart. One of the saving graces we have is a really large outdoor area, and it seems like there might be perhaps some more ability to get people outside. But like most bars, restaurants, tap rooms, we're not designed to be a third full or a half full. The whole mantra since this started is literally one day at a time, and I don't know what we're going to get. To even make projections at this point seems just to be a way to spend time to do busy work. I don't even know what numbers to use, what to look at. We know we're changing the menu just to make it simpler. To start off, just because we're not going to bring back the whole restaurant, the whole cooking team at once. So, for us, it's just, is it going to be in 2 weeks? Is it going to be in 2 months? Who knows? The event side is dead. We had 2 months worth of cancellations pretty quick. The concerts are done. I think they've rescheduled a couple of them for September, one September, other two are next year. There's just so many questions that we don't have any answers to, which I think makes this the toughest thing to do is making decisions without knowing the reality of the situation. So all I can say is, we will get there. Whatever we can do when we can do it, we'll do it. It might mean more beer lines to keep. I don't even know how do you serve beer? How does a beer line work when people are 6 feet apart? There's not enough room in the building.
Yeah.
So we're just going to have to figure out with whatever. We'll take whatever we can get. If it's we get half the volume, or we're such a big location. It could be argued that we're a gathering spot of more than 100 people, which maybe those will be banned for a while. It's like, well, does that mean we can't open because we're that big? There's just so many questions, and no one has the answer. So we just basically going to keep going heads down until we figure out what we can do.
So focusing on what you can do, how have you looked at your portfolio since this started? Have you scuttled plans for future releases and shifted focus to more core offerings? Are you considering, I think you said that your largest pack is a 12 pack. Are you considering larger pack sizes? Because we've seen stock up on those, but then again, was that just an initial bump that we won't see more of? Like, how are you looking at Surly's portfolio and what that looks like in the future?
Well, there's no question it's core. It's our 12 packs. It's Furious. Our variety packs are the ones that are really moving. We have two breweries, our original brewery in the suburbs, which is a 30-barrel brew house. And, a lot of the specialty beers have just kind of dried up. So we have scuttled a couple releases that we had of some smaller seasonal brands. We just, while the distributors also are down, down in volume since they're missing draft sales, but they were so busy for a period of time there too. It didn't seem like they were able to handle anything else. So it just seemed best to maybe scuttle a couple of those brands that we had coming up that weren't huge brands. So we've taken off a couple of them, knocked off a couple in the fall that we, that were marginal, more niche brands, and figured it just there's no point in trying to push something through that doesn't seem to have a lot of traction right now. So there's no doubt, I think, coming out of this, the focus will probably be on, pushing our core brands even more, because it seems to be that's where the strength is lying. And we don't know, what's going to happen when we get out of this. Will beer buying habits in bars and liquor stores go back to what they were? It's hard to tell. But we don't, 12 packs are the biggest size we have. We're actually not set up to do cases to 24s. And, when we talked about it for, 20 minutes, and, just getting the packaging from our supplier is going to take 6 weeks. Some of those long lead items take so long that probably by the time we figured out, we'd be out of all this. So, and having to go down to do some tooling work is nothing we want to do now, because those guys are certainly banging out those 12 packs right now. So yeah, we've got our first actually kind of official production sales marketing meeting today, which we haven't done since this all happened, to kind of talk about where the brands are coming up next. So we'll probably see a reduction in a few of them, and hopefully at least an increase in volume in the big movers.
Yeah, you mentioned, well, one of the things I'm curious about is what you're hearing from your wholesalers. What are they asking for at this point?
Really, they want to know what we're doing with our keg buybacks, right? That's what they all want to know. But we got that squared away. So, I think they're just unsure of, like all of us, unsure of what's going to happen, and just they're unsure. They're the models they've used to order and do predictions in the past are not holding very well right now. So, our big piece to our distributors, especially our larger ones, are just trying to communicate with them daily of just what's going on, what are depletions like, what do you think's going to happen. So it's probably more communication than ever, just to make sure that the orders we have are that we have in the system are what they need, because sometimes they'll just be pulling orders up as opposed to placing a new one. So it's just everything's a bit different. So we're pretty good, because most of our sales are 2 distributors in Minnesota. That's the volume. That's the majority of our volume. So we don't have 50 of them spread out. It's really those 2 that are our biggest percentage. So we have conversations with them all the time, and we've been doing what we can. And I don't think none of those guys have ran out of beer yet. So we're happy we can keep them filled up.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I want to shout you out for is you guys are providing supplemental food for your furloughed employees. I think that's very cool. And I like I said, I think that's cool.
Yeah, well, thanks. We're doing it every Friday. We're providing some meals for employees. And, actually, Justin, one of the things we spent a lot of time talking about is like, well, should they be employees we've furloughed or laid off, or do we going to make them ask for something? And then it's like, well, we also know, like, we have employees whose spouse may not be working. Like, should we not let them have something or give them something? So, at the end of the day, we're like, listen, we have food. If you need it, come get it. And when we laid off or furloughed 280 people, they're people that I know don't have a huge cushion. Or one of our guys was about to have a baby, and he just did the other day. And they're people that have built this brewery and people that have bled for the brewery, and it's we don't have a choice, but it's a pretty tough. It was a pretty tough thing to lay off, or no, those people aren't going to get money. At least in Minnesota, there's a pretty good unemployment system in which people are making some money, but it's hard to look people in the face after they've done, they've given you everything they had, and we just don't have enough to keep them employed. So it seems like that's the least we can do is try and help them out with that. And we're also trying to keep the furloughed people on insurance that have it, just so we can try and get them through that. So these are tough times for everyone, and hopefully we can do a little bit to help and keep people going. So, because God knows we're all gonna get out of this at some point soon, I hope, right? So it's coming. It's just trying to get through this part of it is the hard part.
Absolutely. Well, I know these aren't easy things to talk about, so I appreciate you coming on here and
Sure.
being so candid. So thanks for the time, Omar.